Servants wiped the king with a damp cloth soaked in vinegar. Such were the customs, or rather the hygienic peculiarities, of the 17th century. Royal hygiene was achieved through dry cleansing rituals and the use of perfumed fabrics. It wasn't necessary to be clean, only to smell pleasant, or so some courtiers believed, but not all of them. Indeed, people mostly washed only the parts of the body visible to others: face, hands, and feet. Despite the existence of bathhouses, King Louis XIV rarely bathed, and yet he did bathe. More on that below. At the time, it was believed that steamed open pores made it easier for bacteria to enter the body. Water was feared and considered a carrier of disease, since Europe had been ravaged by plague epidemics. To avoid illness, contact with water was seen as undesirable. Thus, this distrust of water formally limited the number of baths taken, both by the poorest and the wealthiest alike. But the age of plague had passed, and it is unlikely that the king would have been so fond of his fountains if they were considered dangerous. Baths were usually taken only on the advice of physicians. The doctor of Louis XIV prescribed him hot baths, but it's doubtful the king would have lived to old age if he had bathed only once in his life. There are accounts describing how the young king bathed with his mother, Anne of Austria. They wore long linen shirts and bathed together in a spacious marble tub. As an adult, Louis took regular baths with his mistresses. Louis XIV was a forerunner in the development of the soap industry in France, aided by Colbert. Soap making is one of the oldest branches of industry. One of the earliest mentions of it can be found in Pompeii in 79 BCE. The Gauls made soap from goat fat and white birch ash. Only in the 8th century was fat replaced by olive oil. As you can see, soap was part of daily life in that era. So, if Louis XIV and his court used soap infrequently, it wasn't because it didn't yet exist. The soap industry emerged in Europe in the 17th century, which is why Colbert wanted to establish it in France. At first, soap was associated with the Italian town of Savona. Colbert, desiring the best for his country, wanted to introduce soap making to France, but with one condition: that all ingredients be French. Around the year 1670, soap production was established in Marseille. The soap industry in Marseille developed very successfully, despite strong competition from Italy and Spain. Louis XIV regulated soap production down to the smallest detail with a decree dated the 5th of October 1688. According to this decree, under threat of confiscation, all standards of soap making had to be strictly followed. For example, it is forbidden to use barrels previously containing ash, fats, or any other materials in soap factories. Only pure olive oil, free from any mixture with animal fats, may be used. But in the time of Louis XIV, soap was primarily used for laundering clothes. Only later did aristocratic bathing habits begin to take on a more modern form. But for us, people of the 21st century, the aristocrat's idea of dry cleansing rituals is almost incomprehensible. When Louis was a child, he often took baths with his mother, Anne of Austria. According to the customs of the time, people would wear long robes made of coarse gray linen. Such garments were worn for bathing in tubs, and swimming alike. Anne of Austria's bathtub was truly a masterpiece of art. Her bathing apartments were adorned with azure and gold. One could spot a mural featuring the ancient Roman goddess Juno, as well as paintings by Velázquez, the famed Spanish artist. The marble bathtub itself resembled a basin. On its sides were curtains of light gauze fabric. Soft pillows were placed on the bottom for comfort. Nearby stood a small wood-burning stove that provided hot water. Cleanliness is a quality highly recommended for a young prince. The nails must be clean, and the hands should be regularly washed with a damp cloth soaked in eau de fontaine perfume. This was a guideline written by Anne of Austria for her son. Swimming was strongly encouraged, just as the Greeks swam while fishing. As an adult, Louis soon built his own bathing suites in the north wing of the Palace of Versailles, on the ground floor. Most of the time, the king spent these hours in the company of Madame de Montespan. The rooms themselves resembled a full bathing complex, decorated in black, white, and red marble. Inside were mirrors and a couch for resting. His octagonal marble bathtub has survived to this day. However, when Louis XV came to power, the bathing rooms were remodeled into apartments for French princesses, as space in Versailles was in short supply. Louis XIV's tub was moved to the Orangerie. It should be noted that at the time, such a bathtub cost a fortune, equivalent to about 50 years of a stonemason's income. Louis specifically commissioned such a luxury to impress his beloved. The king did not bathe every day. On ordinary days, Louis was wiped down with a mixture of water and wine vinegar. Each morning he washed his hands and face and brushed his teeth with a wooden toothbrush-like tool. However, these brushes did not save the king's teeth from decay. In fact, that was the primary cause of his odor. One surgeon, in a failed attempt to extract an upper tooth, tore part of the king's palate. At times, food would get trapped in this cavity and emit a foul smell. In her memoirs, Madame de Montespan complained that the king opened windows even during the cold season to lessen the stench.